Hey everyone, my name is Ryan Doble, and today we're going to be taking a look at this thing over here. This is the DJI OSMO Pocket 1, which was released back in December of 2018. This camera has some pretty impressive specs even though it's 5 years old, so let's see if it's still worth it. Let's quickly run over some of the specs. You've got a 1/2.3 inch sensor, so it's pretty small, but thankfully DJI didn't pack so many pixels in there. It's only 12 megapixels, so it's still relatively okay in low light. You have a 26mm equivalent lens, which is relatively wide at f2.0, so that also helps out with the low light shots. The ISO starts off at 100 and tops out at 3200 for both photo and video. You've got 4K at up to 60 frames per second, 1080p at 120. That is amazing. I mean, that's pretty much the specs that you're seeing in all of the cameras that are released nowadays. So given this being 5 years old, that's amazing. Now those specs are great and all, but back then, phones couldn't really provide that. I mean, either you wouldn't have 60 frames per second at 4K or you wouldn't have the same level of stabilization. I wanted to see if that's changed nowadays. So I've got an iPhone 14 Pro and we put it to the test. Now we were driving on an extremely bumpy road. I'm gonna share two shots with you. One of them is shot with the DJI OSMO Pocket. One of them is shot with an iPhone, and then you're gonna have to guess which one is which. Did you notice the difference? The first one was shot with the OSMO Pocket 1, the second shot was shot with the iPhone. Pretty impressive level of stabilization. If you focus on just the outside of the car and not the inside, because the inside is actually the one that's shaking, it's trying to stay level with the outdoors. If we replay the clip, focus on that and see how much of a difference there actually is between the two shots. Pretty impressive, right? Let me share some more sample shots and you be the judge of whether you think this camera is still worth it today.
Stand down, darling. Oh. We've come too far this time. You've left a hole in place of my heart.
There you go. So what do you think? Do you think this camera here is still worth it today, or should you shell out for the newer versions, the Osmo Pocket 2, 3, or maybe even the latest one? Let me know down in the comments below. Now for my thoughts, I personally think this camera is still totally usable today. In fact, it has shocked me with the level of quality that this can still deliver given its age. Sure, you're not going to get as good low light capabilities, but this isn't even the type of camera that you would want to use low light. This is the type of camera that you would use outside on a nice day shooting action that requires a lot of movement. So you're recording your dogs as they're running around. Maybe you're recording a travel vlog, or you're just walking down the street talking to the camera and you want it to be nice and steady. For all of those things, this camera will deliver. And it's got beautiful color science with that. It's got up to 100 megabits per second, so you have a little bit more leeway space when it comes to editing. I mean, it's not 150, 200 megabits, but a lot of 4K cameras back in the more beginning time of 4K only shot 60 megabits, so 100 is an upgrade. For photos, even though you're probably not shooting photos with this, it even shoots RAW, so it's pretty much got everything that you could possibly want out of it. So if you have an iPhone, is it still worth the purchase? Yes. The difference was totally visible, especially if you just look on the outside. The iPhone can correct some of the movement, but there's nothing that will ever compare to a true gimbal where the camera physically moves to correct the motion. The only way you can reach the same level of stabilization with an iPhone is by either turning on action mode, which in my experience hasn't been able to yield the same level of quality that this can. What action mode does is it crops in on the wide angle lens, and uses that extra space that it cropped with to stabilize the image. In my testing, it's not that great, especially if you're trying to make something look cinematic. So your only options are that or putting it onto a gimbal like the DJI Osmo Mobile. Now there's nothing wrong with the DJI Osmo Mobile, and I personally own one as well, but it is cumbersome to pair with your device every single time. With something like this, you have it right there, ready to go. You just hold it, give it a few seconds, and it's already ready to shoot. So long story short, 100% worth it today, and you can get them for an incredible deal. In fact, I saw some floating around on eBay for around 150 Canadian dollars, fully working. That is a steal. It's really difficult to find cameras that are this feature packed, have this level of stabilization, 4K 60 frames per second at that price point. So if you can find one for a good price point on eBay, is in good physical condition, I would say you should totally spring for it. Anyways, I hope you learned something new from this video. I hope you enjoyed. This video is a little bit different than some of my other videos. Usually I have a bit of a studio set up. As I mentioned in my previous video, I am in Slovakia right now visiting family, and tomorrow I am going to Italy. I'm so hyped for that. I'm going to be editing this on the road, but for the meantime, I've got this temporary little YouTube situation going on here. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you guys next time. Ciao.